Over the years, we've seen plenty of right-wing politicians sully whatever credibility they had left, trying to get into the good graces of Donald Trump, and oftentimes it ends up just completely backfiring or they get into trouble over it. And the next person to be following this trend appears to be Trump's fourth and final White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows. And that is because Meadows is no longer cooperating with the January 6th Congressional Committee, meaning that if his obstinance continues, charges could indeed be coming his way. Now, as recently as a few weeks ago, Meadows was cooperating with the January 6th committee. He was providing them with documents and really naming names, like the whole reason we know about the story having to do with Sean Hannity and Brian Kilmeade and Laura Ingraham urging Meadows to tell Trump to end the insurrection was because Meadows was willing to hand over the documents. He was willing to hand over those text messages to the committee. Obviously, we also found out that Don Jr. was trying to urge Meadows to put an end to it. And we also found out that Congressman Jim Jordan was giving an outline to Meadows as to how Mike Pence could throw out the Electoral College votes in states that they were contesting. So this is all based on the fact that Meadows was complying with the committee's requests and handing over the documents. But everything changed around the time Meadows released his book, The Chief's Chief, and Trump publicly lambasted Meadows for the claim specifically that Trump exposed people to COVID after he tested positive for the virus. And one of those people that he exposed was actually Joe Biden during their first debate. Trump called the allegation fake news, and Meadows backtracked, saying, "Oh yeah, that part of my book, that was fake news," apparently regretting that he upset his former boss. Meadows thought that the book was going to flatter Trump, and instead it mainly just got under his skin because of the media coverage having to do with that positive test. It did the exact opposite of what he was trying to do. It was right after this incident that Meadows halted his communications with the January 6th committee. The January 6th Commission wanted to get Meadows to show up in person for testimony. Meadows' lawyer, George Terwilliger, argued he had done enough. He had provided the documents, and the committee should be satisfied with that. In fact, Terwilliger released a statement that reads, quote, "The Select Committee's true intentions in dealing with Mr. Meadows have been revealed when it accuses him of contempt, citing the very documents his cooperation has produced." So what Mark Meadows' attorney is saying here is that basically you should be grateful to my client because so much of this information that you have now is because he was willing to cooperate with the investigation. You shouldn't be turning around now and trying to rope him into testifying if he doesn't want to. You shouldn't be threatening him with criminal charges because, he's given you so much already. And it is true that Mark Meadows was fully cooperating and handed over 9,000 pages of documents. Even though some of that information was indeed damaging to Meadows and to the former president, he still did do that. But you don't really get partial credit when you're talking about a select committee that has the rule of law behind them. And if you're not going to do everything that they ask of you, then you're going to open yourself up to criminal exposure, and that's exactly what's happened here. Recently, the House voted to refer Mark Meadows for criminal contempt of Congress charges, and it's going to be up to Biden's Justice Department and Attorney General Merrick Garland to decide whether or not he's actually going to be charged. And if he is, and he's found guilty, there's actually the possibility on the table of Mark Meadows serving prison time over this. Now, is that actually going to happen? I don't know. He may not even get charged in the first place because it's going to be seen as an overtly political act if this happens. Like, yes, Bannon was charged in this investigation, but he also wasn't willing to comply at all. And Bannon was in Trump's administration, but only as an advisor, whereas Mark Meadows, he was the chief of staff. After all, it's a much more important gig. And so maybe they would just figure that Biden and Biden's Justice Department wouldn't have the political capital to charge Mark Meadows for his obstinance in this case. But we'll have to wait and see. And then obviously if he does get charged, that doesn't mean necessarily he'll get convicted. And if he does get convicted, that doesn't mean necessarily that he'll go to prison over it. He may just face a fine or something like that. So we'll have to wait and see what happens, but you never know. This could definitely happen, and there's definitely some legal exposure here. And Meadows, I'm sure, is probably not sleeping very well at night these days, and that's all because of Donald Trump. And he was trying to get on Trump's good side, and now at the end of the day, he's not only on Trump's bad side, he's also running the risk of criminal charges. So that's Mark Meadows for you. And now there's this very, very long list of people who went down for Donald Trump's sake. You already thought it was long enough. Well, it's getting even longer. We have people on there like Roger Stone, Steve Bannon, Paul Manafort, Michael Flynn, Rick Gates, George Papadopoulos, Michael Cohen. We know that Rudy Giuliani, of course, is in trouble. He's under investigation, and he's also facing that civil suit with Dominion Voting Systems. There's people like Mike Lindell and Sidney Powell who are also running against that case with Dominion voting systems. So is Mark Meadows the next to follow, the next to get in trouble, trying to get into the good graces of Donald Trump? We'll just have to wait and see. But you'd think that all these people would learn their lesson by now. On the bonus show today, we have some great stories. We're going to talk about how Kim Potter, the former police officer, she has been found guilty in manslaughter charges having to do with the killing of Daunte Wright. Kim Potter, of course, was the officer who confused her service weapon with her taser, and she thought that she was tasing Daunte Wright, but she actually shot and killed him. She has been found guilty now, so we'll see what happens with sentencing. We'll see the reactions to all of that. We're going to talk about Donald Trump declaring victory on the war on Christmas. He talked to Mike Huckabee about how before Trump was president, no one would say Merry Christmas, and you weren't allowed to, but ever since Trump served in office, now all of a sudden you can say Merry Christmas. And I also want to talk about a recent COVID scare that I had. I think many of you will find that story interesting. If you want to watch the bonus show today, go to joinpacman.com and sign up for a membership, or you can go to patreon.com/DavidPacmanShow and sign up for a $5 membership there. That's going to do it for today. That's going to do it for the week. Merry Christmas to everyone. David will be back next week, and we'll see you then.